Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we are talking about Mario Kart World and how it's starting to look like different elements of the Mario Kart World Nintendo Direct are starting to leak. So we have one 100% legitimate leak that Nintendo of Korea themselves is responsible for. They are now becoming one of our favorite leakers because they also leaked something about Donkey Kong Bonanza, which we talked about a couple days ago. But we also have a very interesting rumor regarding this Direct that seems to have a pretty good amount of credibility, and when you factor both these things together, there are a variety of implications for what we may see in this presentation, and so I plan on getting into that as well as my theories on what may exactly be going on with the Mario Kart World Nintendo Direct in just a few days. But before going forward, let me take this moment to point out that I am aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers by the time the Switch 2 launches on June 5th. So if you find yourself enjoying my content, I would appreciate it if you could subscribe and hit that notification bell. And here's a brief message about these protective gaming cases from both Supcase and Mumba for, yes, the Nintendo Switch 2. I got the opportunity to try out these cases and see how they fit on the Switch 2, and I gotta say, they feel comfortable, it appears secure, and I can rest easy knowing with these cases on there that my Switch 2 will be protected. But I also appreciated how on the sides you can actually move off the flap to detach the magnetically connected Switch 2 Joy-Con controllers. But perhaps what surprises me the most about these cases is that they've been designed to actually fit inside the dock when attached to the Switch 2. So make sure to check out these cases ahead of the Switch 2's release on June 5th, and the links will be in the description below. So Nintendo of Korea's website is at it again, where they leaked something else very interesting about Mario Kart World this time. Like I said before, they leaked also something very interesting about Donkey Kong Bonanza, which I had an entire video already focused on. But basically, they showed an updated version of the map that has something else that Nintendo has yet to officially confirm to us. And that is a track that's supposed to be right here in this water area, which is Rainbow Road. There is supposed to be Rainbow Road right next to this island here. Here's another shot of it, the full course. It's a little bit more blurry, but you can see the whole thing here. And just looking at this, I'm going to venture to guess that you enter it through the water. And so you see almost like part of Rainbow Road starting here. And so I imagine that given in the Grand Prix, you drive between tracks and find an entrance into the next area. This is where you enter from. You enter from the ocean, and it takes you up into the sky, hence why we see all these different rain clouds, and there will be Rainbow Road. So this could be a Rainbow Road where, yeah, there's going to be a Rainbow Road, but also there's going to be like thunderbolts and such, given the rain clouds we're seeing here. But there are some bigger implications here of what this may mean. Taking a look at the map, as you see here, this is where it would be, right next to the island in this body of water. And I find this to be very interesting, because consider this for a moment. On this side, there are 3 tracks going down in a line. On this side, there are 3 tracks going down in a line. You check the next columns. 4, 4. The next columns. 5, 5. But then in the middle, another 5. And so, altogether, when you add these tracks, it's 29 total tracks. Now, because of the way Mario Kart World works, the different Grand Prix have different trajectories. So you will go into different tracks, and given that there are 29 and not a complete 32, there are going to be some tracks that will overlap with each other where you'll go through them more than once. But because of the variety of the environments in between, every Grand Prix is going to feel totally different. But I noticed something very interesting about the Grand Prix during the Nintendo Treehouse. They only showed 7 of them. And from what we see of the icons, the Grand Prix they're showing are the typical 7 we usually see, but the one that's missing is the Special Cup. And so we already know that Rainbow Road has been intentionally obscured or hidden for some reason during the trailer, website, and Nintendo Treehouse events. But we also know, based off the history of the Mario Kart series, there's usually 8 Grand Prix, and the final one is the Special Cup. So I wouldn't be surprised if either A, they're just hiding it, or B, it's something you unlock a little bit later on where you can play the Special Cup that includes a Rainbow Road. And by adding this track, we get a complete 30, and you'll see 6 tracks down here in the middle column, and there would be a symmetry there. It would make sense. So I'm not going to go ahead and predict that they're actually hiding like 4 more races for the final Grand Prix, because as I already talked about, based off the 29 that already exist for the first 7 Grand Prix, there's already some overlap here. I think what it's going to be is 30. And what's interesting about that is that 30 is almost the typical standard starting 32. So there's not even going to be that much overlap with the Grand Prix here. It's going to be fairly minimal, and again, as I said, given everything we see in between the different tracks, there's plenty of room for a great deal of variety, and perhaps the Grand Prix that do have a couple of tracks that do overlap, we explore those tracks in a different way so it still feels very different. And so maybe during the Mario Kart World Direct, we see Rainbow Road, we see all 8 Grand Prix, the 8 starting Grand Prix at least, and that's just how it goes. But now let's talk about this other rumor coming from Nash Weedle. Now, we've talked about Nash Weedle many times in the past, and some people like to debate how credible they may be, but I've always liked to point out some of their bigger leaks. They've leaked a lot of things actually, but they haven't always been correct. However, the big ones, Metroid Dread, Mario and Luigi Brothership just last year, and just recently, they leaked Donkey Kong Bonanza. They said Donkey Kong Bonanza would be in the Switch 2 Direct, and not 3D Mario, which was a tough prediction to make. I don't think it's a prediction, I think it's more evidence to what I've been thinking, that Nash Weedle is somehow, someway, privy to some insider information here. I'm not saying they get everything right, they don't, so still take them with a grain of salt. But what they're saying here honestly sounds pretty reasonable. So they say, attention, the Mario Kart World Direct on April 17th will have things that will shut people up. I'm summarizing here, it's in Spanish. But basically that's what Nash Weedle's saying here. From what he has heard, what we see in the Mario Kart World Direct is going to shut down the doubters, the haters, and it's going to show how big of a deal Mario Kart World truly is. And I think this is actually a very important point to make here, because currently, there is certainly a great deal of negativity surrounding the pricing situation with Nintendo Switch 2 and Mario Kart World. It is $80, that is a significant increase over the $60 of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Of course, if you account for inflation and such, it's actually about the same price, but still, regardless, this is a significant increase. It's something that people weren't expecting. And recently, the president of Nintendo of America, Doug Bowser, said that they have a very low pricing structure, and they gave Mario Kart World this price because they think it's worth it. And there's a variety of factors that go into this, but they think it's a game that will be worth the $80 price tag. Now, I will say, this is the same things they said about Tears of the Kingdom that came out in 2023, and Tears of the Kingdom is an absolutely huge game. It's even more massive than Breath of the Wild. From a content perspective, especially if you had never played Breath of the Wild before, Tears of the Kingdom is a massive, massive game that dwarfs a whole bunch of other games that would be $60. And so could it be that Mario Kart World is going to do something similar here? The Mario Kart ARMS team did not put out a single full game throughout the entire, very long, 8+ year Switch generation. Except for ARMS, of course, which came out summer of 2017, but after that, it's been nothing. So basically, it's been 8 years since we've seen a full-on new game from this team. Now, personally, I think this means that they've been working on more than one project, and I think that other project will be coming out relatively soon, somewhat similar to my thinking that there might be more from the 3D Mario team beyond just Donkey Kong Bonanza, because they also are in a similar situation here, but that's a conversation for another day. Main point is, there's plenty of reason to think that Mario Kart World is going to straight up be the most massive, significant Mario Kart game to date. They have a higher price tag, they've been working on this game for a very long time, and they are using it as the premier launch title for their new generation. So it kind of needs to deliver the goods. So to say that the Mario Kart World Direct is going to tell us more about this game in a way that will shut down a lot of the doubters, I find that to actually be very believable. Especially when we take into consideration that there is multiple mentions of a lot of content that they've yet to show off during the Treehouse segments that will be shown off during the Direct. On multiple occasions, they talked about during the Treehouse that there's actually a lot more to free roam mode. And so what are we going to see about free roam mode? Could it be more of a single player adventure or campaign of some kind? Before it was confirmed that Mario Kart would be the launch title for Switch 2, we had a lot of conversations on whether there would be anything else alongside Mario Kart being a big launch title from Nintendo for Switch 2. Because while a big, awesome multiplayer game is absolutely going to do well, there's always at least one sort of big single-player adventure on top of that. And maybe that's simply going to be Donkey Kong Bonanza that comes out the month after, in July, and perhaps what they're doing is a little bit of a reverse of what they did back in 2017, where Breath of the Wild was the big single-player adventure that came out at launch, and then about a month later, plus a couple weeks, they released Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And perhaps it's that simple. But maybe they're also thinking that Mario Kart World can get away with being the launch title because not only is it a significant multiplayer game, but it's also a bit of a significant single-player game because a free roam is a bit more significant and there may be a lot to do just on your own by yourself. I think this point is tough to say for certain, but what is clear is that multiple times during the Nintendo Treehouse they did say that there is more to free roam mode. There's a lot of different secrets to find. Take a look at this footage I'm showing here. They tease these awesome Mario dragons that are off into the distance. If I was playing the game, I would have drove straight to them, and there's multiple. So I'm very curious about what's going on there. Is there anything important, or is it just something that looks really cool? Is that perhaps how they border off the game? If you try to go even further beyond that horizon line, you will be stopped by these dragons. That would be a great, really creative way to place boundaries on this open world. And so maybe free roam is just going to have a lot more to it, and that in conjunction with what they've already shown is how Nintendo is going to shut the mouths of the doubters with this direct. I will say there's definitely things we don't quite understand for this game. There are different collectibles, a lot of coins, special coins for particular characters apparently, and we also have the food bags, which transform you into different costumes, but only temporarily during Grand Prix. And many people are scratching their heads as to just how valuable this is, because not even every single character can transform into something else. It just functions as a bit of a boost. Now, personally, I think its value is that it's more than just a normal mushroom, because people cannot knock into it and get a boost. It's a mushroom that can't be stolen. So I think there's actually some decent value there without even considering the transformation element. But maybe when you get the food bag and you acquire a transformation into a different costume, that's how you unlock that new costume to select later on. Now, I've seen some people saying after playing through the treehouse that this is not the case, but I wonder if they're simply making that assumption because they already saw a whole bunch of different skins already unlocked. Have they been playing the game from the beginning without those skins being unlocked, that maybe then, upon getting the food bag, they unlock that costume, but after unlocking, its only real value is a random transformation during a Grand Prix and a boost that can't be stolen. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now, but clearly there's still many secrets to this game. But something else I want to talk about here is perhaps them announcing a bit of an expansion pass during this direct. Now, maybe people do not want to hear about there being an expansion pass to this game given that it's already $80, but I'm not here saying that it would cost anything. I'm not sure. Maybe it would be for free. Maybe they're going to take a little bit of a Splatoon approach where there's going to be waves of new content coming after the initial launch. But I can see a scenario where the first year of Mario Kart World DLC is free, but then that second year there will be some sort of payment required to continue getting the new content. And I think, in theory, there's actually a lot of room for new content here. Because you take a look at the Booster Course Pass, right? There are 96 tracks. They create a whole bunch of different new cups, and there are still a lot of cups that are left over. Yes, with Knockout Tour, we have 8 cups, but actually 3 of them are totally new. The Ice Cup, the Cloud Cup, it appears, and what appears to be the Heart Odyssey Cup. And so they didn't even bring back a lot of the cups they used for the Booster Course Pass, they left them out. Not to mention there are other cups like the Triforce Cup and the Egg Cup that were used for the initial DLC wave from Mario Kart 8 back on Wii U. So there's a whole bunch of different cups that have been unused yet, and they could perhaps add more content later on. Now, the interesting challenge with this though, is that the world of Mario Kart World is seemingly very complete outside of the Rainbow Road that we are pretty sure they're going to add just a little bit later. How could they go about expanding this game? Well, there could be more sky tracks, there could be underground tracks, so perhaps that's how they can go about doing it, or maybe they can simply add other continents, other islands, and there can be some sort of boat or bridge that they add that will allow you to go to these areas within the free roam mode, and these areas, they have their own sort of open sections. They wouldn't be as large as the main game, but there will be ways to expand the map here. That's one way I think they could go about doing it and adding more content with the tracks. But moving beyond talk of potential DLC maybe being announced, Perhaps free roam mode is a bit of a single player mode, or maybe there's a whole other mode they haven't shown off that is a single player mode with missions and perhaps boss fights, things like that. That's possible. But something we have not seen yet that's always there is battle mode. How will battle mode be done this time around? Are they swapping out battle mode for Knockout Tour? Is there no longer going to be a battle mode? I feel like this is a little bit unlikely, and I only say that because they went ahead with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and added a whole other new version of battle mode there, and that was the primary new content they added for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And it's been many years since then, so perhaps they have changed their perspectives here, and there won't be a battle mode this time around. But I kind of feel like battle mode is still pretty important, and I think they're going to want to find a way to include that, especially considering how massive this game is supposed to be. So how will this battle mode work? I imagine they'll get into that during this presentation. So I'm sure this Direct is going to be basically the full-on overview and explanation for everything there is to know about this game. I do hope there are some secret unlockables and things they don't spoil during this Direct presentation, but I imagine this presentation is going to be very similar to the Mario Kart 8 Direct we got so many years ago back for the Wii U. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.